General Jack Keane. He's a Fox News military analyst and also the chairman of the group I mentioned, that think tank, the Institute for the Study of War. General, always good to have you, and especially considering what the U.S. Central Command has just told Fox News. It is denying the report that your colleagues from the Institute were quoted in. What is your response?
Well, listen, Ramadi has been important to ISIS from the very beginning. The first city to fall in January 2014 was Fallujah, which is just down the road from Ramadi. ISIS began to take on Ramadi shortly after that and has been intimately attacking Ramadi all this time up to the middle of this month when it fell. And let me be quite accurate. The Iraqi security forces deserve some credit, although people aren't giving them much, to having successfully defended Ramadi during this entire time, which is close to 15 months. I think what happened is after Tikrit and the fall of Tikrit, ISIS made up their minds that they were truly going to take Ramadi. They had tried many times before, had not succeeded. So they generated combat power to do that. They conducted a number of supporting attacks in the area, seizing towns, and also seizing some of the influential neighborhoods that are on the outskirts of Ramadi so that they can conduct an attack into the government center from those neighborhoods. Those are obvious to everybody looking at it. And I think, the military characterized Ramadi, if you can remember at the time, General Dempsey said it wasn't as high a priority as the Beji refinery, and it was not strategically important. I likely think that's a statement that he would like to withdraw. But
yeah, you know what, General, let me step in here for just a second, because you've said something that I want to press in on. You said that at this point you want to give the Iraqi forces a little bit more credit. Defense Secretary Ash Carter absolutely did not do that. He said that they lack the will to fight. And from this report, supported by your colleagues at the Institute for the Study of War, it would seem that either we were told something that was different or untrue about the Iraqi forces and how we purportedly were helping them, or something else. What is it?
Well, listen, I'm not an apologist for the Iraqi security forces. I mean, what we saw in Fallujah and in Mosul was real. We saw the collapse of a force. But we also know, as does the Pentagon, the reasons for that. Maliki decimated that force post-2011, purged all the leaders, and they stopped training. They took the money and pocketed it. His cronies were in charge from 2011 to what we saw last January. So we had a poorly led and a poorly trained force that collapsed. Mm-hmm. What we've been trying to do is fix that problem. We consider Iraq a partner in trying to defeat ISIS. I think it's misplaced to go out of your way to criticize them the way we did, particularly over Ramadi when they have defended it as long as they did. Okay. Admittedly, they lost at the end.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what your institute and other analysts, other experts say that they knew, and our Pentagon is saying that it did not know that Ramadi was, imminently about to fall. Don't we have some satellites in that region of the world, something that we might be able to see if something that large like the ISIS army were on the move? I mean, I realize they're not a regiment like ours, but I would imagine we have some eyes in the sky, some capability. How is it that people who are experts could see it, but the Pentagon couldn't?
Yeah, I find that absolutely stunning. Supporting attacks to seize towns around Ramadi itself tells you that something's happening. Seizing those neighborhoods tells you. And also moving heavy equipment forward would also tell you. Yes, we should be able to see all of that. Obviously, seizing the towns is something being reported on by our Iraqi forces. The thing that ISIS deserves some credit for here is the fighters that they moved out of Syria. They didn't move them in caravans and pickup trucks like they normally do, or military vehicles. They put them in sedans, and they brought those fighters in numbers, and they were largely their suicide bombers who created that phalanx of attacks to break down the initial defensive positions. Some of those bombs were so devastating, entire blocks were blown up. And they also, in addition to that, all their fighters followed, and they came in then in military vehicles, traveled all the way to Ramadi by sedan, and doing that deceptively. So we have to just not always just blame the Iraqi army. They have their problems, and their problems are serious. But ISIS deserves a little credit for what they're doing operationally and tactically as well.
Wow. It's hard to want to give the enemy credit. Real quickly, you have some ideas that do not involve putting combat units, American units on the ground there. What are they? How do we defeat ISIS without actually doing that?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we will not eventually need some ground combat forces, but I still think it's within the realm of possibility to avoid it and support the Iraqi security forces in Iraq. The first thing we need is a strategy to deal with Syria and the defeat of ISIS in it, because that's their headquarters, that's where they resupply from, that's where they're recruiting from, that's where they're training from. And as the UN is reporting, they've grown 70% in the last 9 months. That is largely in Syria, and we're doing nothing about it. So
What's your
that's
strategy?
problem one. The strategy is there to put together an Arab coalition to deal with it, but we have to deal with Assad first. In Iraq, we just have to do so much more than what we are. With this air problem that you're alluding to, we got to fix it. We have pilots telling us it's taken them too long to be able to drop bombs effectively, and we have nobody on the ground to help guide those bombs, particularly when we're in urban centers like Ramadi. We call that close combat. Though that problem has to be fixed, or else we're going to continue to see a replay of what we have witnessed in Ramadi. More trainers, more advisors, special operation forces conducted many more raids like we saw in Syria, but even larger ones to destroy critical infrastructure and to destroy organizations. And mostly, we got to stop distancing ourselves from Iraq and have the determination and resolve that we can win this and put the resources in to do it, and have the tough-mindedness to persevere through the setbacks and obstacles that do occur. And I just would finally say that Iraq is important to us, not just because we've been partners with them since 2003, because it's in the United States' national interest. We are talking about an expanding ISIS, and Iraq is very important to them. It affects the security of the American people and affects the security of our national interest to have a stable Middle East. So Iraq matters, and let's get our arms around this problem and get at solving it.
All right. I know you spoke with the Senate House Armed Services Committee last week. You testified and then came on this very program right after and talked with us. I glimpse perhaps a return to Capitol Hill, sir. We'll keep an eye out for that. We appreciate your time, General Keane. Thank you.
Good talking to you, Harris, as always.
Always.